Welcome back to Wholesale and Around the World, the Maryland edition. And today I'm going to be giving my takeaways on how I feel about virtually wholesaling inside of the state of Maryland. Man, you want to talk about one of the strangest places to wholesale in, that's Maryland. I mean, it is just a weird state, especially just from someone that has not spent a lot of time. I think I've visited Maryland once in my life. It's just a unique place. Comes in ranking 18th in population with just north of 6 million people inside the state. Maybe part of the reason why it's a weird place is because 10% of the population is shoved into its one major metro city, Baltimore. It's also surrounded by Washington, D.C., right? I'm not including Washington, D.C. inside of this. Okay. I consider that its own like market and its own like needs to understand how to wholesale there. So we're just talking about the state of Maryland. It's a weird place. And just like you shove 10% of your population inside of Baltimore, you shove the houses inside of Baltimore in that city. I mean, it's one of the few places in the United States that has row houses, making it very unique when it comes to comping and underwriting, right? I think the city of Baltimore has to be one of the top 5 most difficult cities to comp and underwrite in. And, you hear this all the time. You start talking to people and it's like, oh, it's street by street. And man, the values can really change. That is absolutely a fact in the city of Baltimore. Okay. Probably more so than anywhere. The only thing that I can really see that it's comparable to it is Philadelphia. But Baltimore is just so unique. And it very much feels like a blend between like some of the low price point major metro areas like the Birminghams and the Kansas Cities and the St. Louis and Detroits, the ones that we talk about all the time when you have to pay attention to those current market value as is comps, right? Your competition that's on the market. That's absolutely the case inside of most of Baltimore, but you also have higher price point properties in Baltimore, which is rare for some of these markets. So you have the blend of both higher price points, lower price points, cash flow, and flips. Paying attention to row houses as well as normal single family, and then you have duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. It gives you a blend of a little bit of everything. And when it comes to comping and underwriting, I am telling you, distance-wise, you have to narrow down as much as you possibly can. And you have to be paying attention to any massive changes in the neighborhood. And it can literally be, hey, 2 blocks away, the price point is double what your property is. And that is what makes Maryland so difficult, because realistically, the city that you want to be getting deals in is Baltimore, right? I'm not saying it's the only place. We've done deals in all of the different parts of the state of Maryland, but Baltimore is the city, right? It's the major metro city in the state of Maryland. And so the majority of your leads are going to come in there. That's where the majority of end buyers are going to be. And so from a comping and underwriting perspective, you have to pay attention to where your end buyers are buying. And so it is imperative that when you get in and you start analyzing a deal, you try to find that blueprint property as close and as comparable as possible to your property. I would say out of all of the cities out there in the United States, Baltimore is the one that will take me the longest to underwrite a deal correctly. Okay. And that is saying something, because I don't normally harp on this as much as I do here in Philadelphia, but it is absolutely a very unique market. Now, when you move outside of Baltimore, I want to go to the east side of Maryland, where it runs along the side of Delaware and it goes down into the Atlantic Ocean there. That is a area where there is motivation from sellers. Dispositions, from my experience, is going to be a little bit harder, right? Looking at our map here where we've done deals in Princess Anne. We've done deals in, I guess that's Nanacoke. I think that's how you say that. Funny enough, I don't even know how to say city, but we dispoed a deal there. We've done deals in Cambridge. I think we've had some down even further south, but that area, Dispositions, is just a little bit harder, is what I've seen. Okay. Now moving back up to where Baltimore is. Of course, we've done deals in Annapolis, Towson, Sykesville, and all of those surrounding areas to Baltimore. And then moving to the west side of the state, the majority of the deals that we've done have been in the northern part of the state, Hagerstown, Cumberland, Frostburg. Those are areas. What I will say there is we've done a lot of small multifamily deals there because of the cash flow. And so we can tap in to some buy and hold investors that maybe aren't local to that market, but they're definitely open to buying because of the cash flow. I will say comping and underwriting outside of Baltimore is normally more easy. It's you're not running into as many row houses, and you are coming across more of that small multifamily where it's easy to see the values because there are comparable quadplexes, triplexes, duplexes, and as well as just the cash flow of paying attention to where your end buyers buy. Overall, on the acquisition side, what I feel about Maryland is it's kind of middle of the road, right? You're going to get a lot more motivation inside the city of Baltimore than you are in kind of the more rural areas, which is normally the opposite. But inside of Baltimore, I do feel like there is a level of highly distressed properties. I feel like I come across more physically distressed elements of motivation than I do financially. And then the sellers kind of know, like, yeah, this property's so physically distressed, I know I can't get much for it. But what I run into is that the value is just not there on some properties. Like there's areas inside of Baltimore that you can't make the numbers pencil out. Dispositions of Baltimore, I've always felt is pretty strong. You will get your teeth kicked in by the local end buyers that really know that if you don't comp and underwrite correctly, right? They're going to be like, hey, you must not be from around here. That this is one of those markets that you're going to get. When you move outside acquisitions, I feel like the Dispositions is plausible, right? It just takes a little bit more time. And so the further away from Baltimore and Washington, D.C. that you get, the more time it's going to take you unless you have established relationships. If you're kind of just blindly trying to dispo and build those relationships, plan on it taking more time. Acquisitions, again, middle of the road. Overall, that's kind of how I feel about Maryland. It ranks as the 18th most populated state, but it's the 5th most densely populated state. So it is very heavily populated for the size of the state, but really from a virtual wholesaling perspective, unless you have connections to Maryland, I'm kind of putting it in the middle of the road. I'm moving it more closer to like 25th to 30th overall. I never really look at Maryland and go, that's an area where we're going to have consistent deal flow, right? In Ohio, Missouri, Michigan, those are states where, hey, we have no connections to it, but we are going to have consistent deal flow there. I don't feel that way about Maryland. However, if you are able to get a deal there in Maryland, it's probably going to be a little bit higher of an assignment fee. And that's something that you normally see more on the west side of the United States, right? The Oregons, Washingtons, Californias, Nevadas, whatnot. That's where you see like, hey, this acquisition's a little bit harder, but higher assignment fee. Kind of what you see in Maryland. It's comparable there, where instead of it being a $10,000 to $15,000, it's very common to get a $20,000 to $30,000 assignment fee inside the state of Maryland. So to the newer virtual wholesalers that are looking to expand the markets, I probably wouldn't suggest Maryland unless you have a known end buyer or some sort of market knowledge, right? If you used to live in Baltimore or you have family there, you have boots on the ground, then yeah, it would be a good market for you to go to. And I have actually been doing deals in Maryland going all the way back to 2016. So we've been doing deals there for 9 years. Baltimore actually happened to be one of the first virtual cities that I decided to expand outside of the state of Texas, right? We were Dallas, Fort Worth to begin with. Then we went to San Antonio, Austin, Houston. And then when we decided to move outside the state of Texas, I chose Tulsa, Phoenix, Baltimore, and Seattle and Portland. And Baltimore ended up being the most difficult out of all of those to get deals initially. And now looking at it, I see that we were just making mistakes on the comping and underwriting side of things. It took time for us to develop that skill set. So if you do get leads, say you're running nationwide PPL leads and you get something inside of Maryland, brace yourself, take your time, really narrow down the distance and making sure that whatever you're comparing your property to, the comp is like in kind. Row house needs to be to a row house. Single family cannot use row houses. Don't use any duplexes, triplexes, or anything like that. You have to find those like in kind. And specifically going back to the row houses, because you're going to see a lot of those, especially in comparison to somewhere else like Texas, where we don't have those really, or Florida. Pay attention to the fact that you really want your comparable to be on the same building. Like that's what makes it a super powerful blueprint comp. Otherwise, you're probably going to be struggling on the disposition side. That's my take on Maryland. For those of you that are currently wholesaling inside the state of Maryland, let me know. Did I do a good job? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And to the person who has been commenting saying, hey, I'm looking for that Maryland breakdown, I'm struggling to close a deal. Here's what I'll tell you. If you're talking to a seller inside of Maryland and you're struggling to close it, it's no different than talking to a seller anywhere else. Determine what their motivation is and solve their problem. And if you can't do that, then you're not the right fit for them. Someone else needs to solve their problem, point them in the right direction, and move on to the next lead. If you're talking about closing a deal from a disposition side, it's inside the city of Baltimore. There's absolutely a plentiful amount of investors there. If it's rural and it's outside of the city of Baltimore, that's to be expected. Utilize the softwares that exist nowadays like Investor Lift, Investor Base, Deal Speed. Find those in buyers, create a relationship, move your deal. All right, guys, show me some love. Like today's video. Let me know. Did I nail Maryland or do I not know what I'm talking about? We'll see you guys tomorrow.